Asmussen has been laid off from his job. He used to work here at the Saab factory in the Swedish town of Trollhattan. But when the Swedish car maker filed for bankruptcy protection last February, Asmussen was one of the 700 employees let go 2 months later. Today he's our guide, showing Euronews around the outside of the plant.
Left side you have the test track, and the big building has Saab on it, that's the paint shop.
Asmussen worked here for 21 years. During that time he said he owned a lot of Saabs, but today he drives a Chrysler.
Want to have a Saab is it's too expensive if I really get unemployed.
When General Motors, Saab's owner, filed for bankruptcy, it said it was selling Saab. The U.S. government now owns GM. It poured billions of dollars into the former automobile giant to save jobs. But in Sweden, Saab got no help.
Get a little disappointed on the Swedish government. I have seen we have heard about the French government, how they help the car factories in France. And I think maybe the Swedes could do a little bit the same.
But when it comes to government aid for Europe's ailing car industry, Stockholm may get the last word. Saab has been making cars here in the southwestern city of Trollhattan for over 60 years. GM bought part of Saab in 1990, and 10 years later it took complete control. During those 19 years, Saab only showed a profit once. Last year alone it lost 220 million euros. And while other European governments have announced financial aid for their automobile industry, Stockholm said it was not in the business of owning cars.
If the market doesn't believe in Saab as a brand, why should the government do it? If we had then, in February, been given them guarantees for loans, then we had to today call for the collaterals and had put Saab in a very tougher situation. And also the taxpayers, of course, in Sweden. So we believe that it was clear and right. There must be a market trust and a market position for a brand who is working on the open market. And then, of course, we can be supporting in state guarantees for loans from European Investment Bank.
Until last month, there were growing fears that soon Saab cars would only be found in museums. But on June 16th, Swedish sports car maker Koenigsegg announced it was buying Saab. It's a gamble on both sides. Last year, Koenigsegg made only 18 cars. Each one cost over 1 million euros. And Saab needs to prove it can be viable in a market hard hit by the financial crisis.
Saab is Trollhattan and Trollhattan is Saab. And I don't think anybody disagrees on the street. Anyone you interview, they will say the same thing. And it's extremely important. Its tradition is the Saab spirit, always fighting. Of course, we are affected about the crisis, the economic crisis that affects the car industry. But we have the fighting spirit. We have been in the ditch before, and we will go up of the ditch again.
Trollhattan's population of about 54,000 people is heavily dependent on Saab. It's estimated that some 22,000 jobs in the region are connected to the Swedish car maker. Negotiations are now underway to secure guarantees and loans from the European Investment Bank. But while the future is still uncertain, this trade union leader said at least one good thing has come out of this car industry crisis: less outsourcing.
This business plan is built on that nearly all the production all the cars in the future will be produced in Sweden. We will have some production in Mexico also, but the new 95, for example, will be produced here in Sweden, not in Germany. The convertibles we will take home from Austria and so on. Nowadays, more and more car manufacturers see that it's the best if you can do the most of the car in-house, that will be the best to earning money. So that is a new trend, yes. It's a trend that we from the union side have talked about in many years, but they haven't listened before now.
But while Swedish companies may be listening to their trade unions, the fear is that on a European level, governments are not. Stockholm takes over the EU rotating presidency on the 1st of July. One of its main priorities is making Europe more competitive and creating jobs. It also wants to fight protectionism. Not an easy task when Europe's biggest economies, Germany and France, have poured millions of euros into their car manufacturers to save jobs. And for Jan Nylander, the fear is that more companies throughout Europe will be asking for state aid to weather the current economic storm.
The problem is that it's a difficult period now. So it's, I think governments all over Europe, they are not thinking about how to make the economy, in a bigger perspective, working better and so on. They are thinking now about saving jobs and to get Europe out of the crisis. And for them, it's like, they're thinking about in the short term, how can we save jobs?
This is the first Saab prototype. It was built in 1945 to convince Saab airplane manufacturers to start making cars. It worked. But today, Saab warns that to be able to compete, the EU needs to clarify its rules regarding the car industry.
I don't know what Europe can do. I guess provide long-term goals that we, so that we know where we are going. And also, I think, talking competitiveness, I think what we see now is protectionism, and I also think that it's good if you can have a little less of protectionism for the car industry. Or at least from a Swedish perspective, we are so small.
Ole Asmussen has heard the good news about Saab finding a new owner. The quality control engineer hopes that if Saab increases production, he could get his job back by next year. Even though he's Danish, he's proud about his Swedish employer.
It's a little more positive now that we have a new owner coming. And if we get a new owner with a lot of money, we can get the loans and the guarantees, and then we can continue building good Swedish cars.
While Sweden's Saab story may get a happy ending, some chapters are still not finished. Saab owes over 1 billion euros to GM and other creditors. Until he gets his job back, Asmussen plans to keep his motorcycle.